There, respectively. The English major got it wrong. Everyone, I hope you're proud. Are you proud? Is this what you wanted? Anyway, I'm going to type.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. I'm your host with the toast, Toast, here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. We are going to be doing more timeline stuff. That's why the slide is on the screen. I wanted to say a few things. I just wanted to do an audio talk again because I feel like I always do an audio talk. For the past, I think year and a half, so in doing all of the compilations, I was watching a lot of my old videos, and I saw that I didn't quite have a good camera presence early on, and I think that's still true. Or I think that's true looking back. And I think I gained a better camera presence. All right, fine, Mark. Mark really wants to come onto the camera. I didn't have a great camera presence, and I think my camera presence has gotten better over the years. But I was really taking a moment and thinking about, what vibe do I want to chase? You know? Because for the first couple years of this YouTube channel, I'd been solely focusing on how do I grow this channel to be the biggest channel it can be, right? Obviously that's still a big part of me and how I approach content, because just being super real, the better the content does, the more I can put back into the content. You know what I mean? Recently I just upgraded my computer, which is something that I did because of the content, and now I can make content faster now. I can export in twice the time. I can edit faster because Premiere doesn't crash every couple minutes. So it's things like that, and so it's still a big part of me is making the content as big as it can be. But I've been really thinking the past month or so about what vibe I want to chase. And I think in practicing my camera presence and getting better on camera and getting better connecting to you guys, the audience, right? I had been falling into, I for lack of a better word, the YouTube hype voice. The Five Nights at Freddy's just dropped a massive update and we need to talk about it, which that's cool. But that's not me. And I don't know if that's the vibe I want for my channels either. There's a place for that. And I respect the people who do that. Sometimes I need a video to do that so I can pay attention to it. But in thinking about the vibe I want to chase, I think it's way more laid back. I think it's in my natural neutral voice, which is right around here. And it's calmer, something that kind of like the third channel where I say it's something you can sleep to or study to. It's hard to do that with a lot of my videos, frankly. I think the podcast is good for that. But for the video compilations, I'm so happy they do well. But frankly, I couldn't watch them because I think they're too energetic and it's too distracting for me. Whereas talking at my normal cadence, but keeping the camera presence and confidence that I've gained over these years and combining that, I think that's the persona and attitude I want to chase. And I kind of did a taste of that last week with the main channel video and the second channel video. I don't know if some people noticed it, but my voice was deeper, and it's not putting on a voice. If I put on a voice, I get here, and this is my my fake, or you can do the fuckboy rasp, right? Where you get right here and you're trying your best to sound like Corpse, but only he sounds like that because he has a throat thing. You know what I mean? But this voice is the customer service voice that I always talk about, right? Where it's not a fake voice, it's not somebody lying to you, but it's like when you're working customer service. You're giving your happiest, best foot forward so that you can make their day better. But that's not real either. And that's fine. But I don't know if it's what I want to chase. That's what I keep coming back to. I think I want to chase the vibe that's most natural to me. And that's right here. You know, similar to, obviously, everyone has their own style of things, but closer to like a night mind thing. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but a more laid back environment with a more laid back me. So I think I'm gonna chase that for a bit and just see how it goes, and hopefully it goes well. I don't want to make this like, oh, it's a big announcement, we're changing the vibe of everything. Like, the content's gonna be the same. It's still me, you know. And I also don't want it to seem like I've been torturing myself to be happy for you. It's not that either. It's I've done customer service for my entire working life, and I want to try to not do customer service for this. So we're going to find out, you know? I think we're going to keep the confidence, we're going to keep the camera presence, but we're just going to like chill, for lack of a better word. So we'll see how that goes. And I appreciate you being along for the ride for it. And I will say, you may have noticed something in the background of this video. Stay tuned for official announcements. But you're not crazy, and I didn't forget to take it out. That's there on purpose. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about the timeline. We left it off at the end of FNAF 1 in what I believe to be 1993. I've been won over on that argument. For now. I'm still willing to change. Years outside of, like, stated years are such a fickle beast in FNAF. You know, like, 1985, 1987, I think these are pretty hard dates, but we go to, like, FNAF 1, who the fuck knows? And frankly, doesn't matter. Once you get out of hard-lined dates, as nice as it is to have dates, the only thing that matters is the order, right? And I think the order here is FNAF 2, FNAF 1, Sister Location 3. I think that makes the most sense. So, I guess I'll get to tippy typing. Do we do the recap? I don't want to do the recap every time because it's going to get longer every time. The podcast is going to turn into a One Piece episode if I do the recap every time. Go watch the first 2 timeline videos if you want the breakdown of the timeline so far, okay? But I'll recap our last slide. This is post-FNAF 1. 1993 continued. William is dead in the safe room. The MCI victims attempt to find the rest of their souls to find peace, eventually finding the conglomerate of the fun times and merging with them. Charlotte and Cassidy stay to keep an eye on William, who seems to be... Charlotte and Cassidy stay to keep an eye on William, who seems to still be present in this world. William, whose suit's programming isn't allowing it to function in the safe room, is stuck in a seated show mode until he's eventually found. We'll get there. So then Michael goes for plan B. After enough time has passed and William hasn't come back, Michael follows the instructions his father gave him and makes his way for the sister location bunker in their house. What year is this? Dog, I don't know. So it's going to be... New slide. Nope. Delete that shit. That looks gross. Duplicate slide. This is going to be... I know that's a huge gap. I was trying to think of any better way to say it than 22 years worth. But I'm still a FNAF 3 2015 truther, if I'm being so for real. I think it's 30 years after the original FNAF closes. So 2015. I know that there is a lot of evidence for 2023, but I still think 2015 is most likely. That's something I'm holding on to. But we don't really have a year for sister location, and we don't need one. We just need to know what it happens between, and I think it happens between FNAF 1 and FNAF 3. So the sister location slides will have these years. I'm going to start typing. Oh, I'm not going to start typing. I got so many goddamn comments. Y'all think you're so funny, huh? I gotta find it. I don't even know where it is. I don't even know where I put it. But y'all think you're so fucking funny, don't you? There it is. Y'all think you're so fucking funny. Right. I don't think he was very respectful. I don't think he did it respectfully. All right, you know what? You type what's going to probably be a 40-page PowerPoint on the FNAF lore, okay? There. respectively. The English major got it wrong. Everyone, I hope you're fucking proud. Are you proud? Is this what you wanted? Anyway, I'm going to type. We're going to record this in parts. If this is going to be a weird podcast, I'm just going to say right here, the whole power in the house flickered. I'm going to record this in parts. All right. This is a pretty straightforward slide, right? Like this is sister location. Essentially, sister location happens. At this point, so Michael is going down to the bunker. All of the MCI spirits have rested inside the fun times, but their remnant have been melted together and taken apart so many times. It's an interesting illusion I always like to bring up when talking about sister location. The closest animatronic outside of the fun times that we have to sister location is Mangle, because in some instances, Mangle is literally Funtime Foxy. I don't think it is in FNAF 2. I think that's Toy Foxy. But, the Silver Eyes was like, what if it is? Regardless, the whole thing about Mangle was that kids kept taking it apart and putting it back together and taking it apart and putting it back together. And then you look at the souls, the MCI remnant, and what it has gone through in the fun times. They were literally taken apart, put back together, taken apart, put back together. And right now they're taken apart and all they want to do is be put back together. And I think it's a really fun parallel. Oh, he said parallel. Kill him. But their remnant has been so, if you will allow me to, mangled, that they're more like rabid animals than thinking living people at this point, which is why I think it's also notable the only animatronics that ever twitch in this very specific way are the fun times and the toys, which is really interesting. And what I mean by that is in Funtime Gallery, when you're doing the Funtime Foxy mode, and you have the Flash, and you see Flash as a Funtime Foxy while you're avoiding it. Funtime Foxy isn't just chilling. Funtime Foxy's head is going crazy every time you see them. And the only other time we see that kind of like erratic behavior is from Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica in Ultimate Custom Night when they slide in frame and they're like twitching crazy. It's just a really interesting thing. Is that on purpose? Who knows? Probably not. But they're rabid. They are just angry, vicious, and all they want to do is form back into one thing and escape. Michael goes into the bunker to try to continue his father's experiments. He's doing what his dad told him to. Like we hear in the one cutscene, I did what you asked me to. I found her. I put her back together. He is trying to finish what William started now that William is gone. But in doing this, instead, he finds everything. He finds the documents. He finds the blueprints. He finds what William was doing, what happened to his sister, what the fun times are, and his own nightmare experiments. Up until this point, Michael would have understood his horrible nightmares that trapped him for his entire life as something his dad was working to stop. But in doing this, in going through the bunker, he would have found the blueprints. He would have found the screen. We know Henry found the blueprints, and he's not even, like, Henry finds this so much later. He now knows that his father was the one putting him through those nightmares. His father was the one making him live that hell. This is where the turn comes, right? Because there's a really interesting moment in the sister location monologue where Michael is like, but something's wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I'm going to come find you. Up until now, in that monologue, Michael is like, I did what you asked me to. I helped. I put her back together. I did everything you wanted me to do. And now I'm coming for you. And it's like, where is that twist coming from? Where is that turn coming from? And I think this is the turn. Because, like, why would he have gone there in the first place if he already was like, I want to come get you? So he wouldn't have listened to William if he was already wanting to come get him. Unless, like, he dangled it in front of him, like, you can save Elizabeth, blah, 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 you know. But that idea of, like, I'm going to come get you. How dare you, right? And I think this is it. I think it's him learning about the nightmare experiments, learning that all of this is William's fault, and learning what happened to Elizabeth. Right? Like Michael, like Dave, Michael blames himself for. Crying Child, Michael's like, I did that. Elizabeth is all William. So that's what I'm thinking there. But of course he has to finish this first, because he's surely has realized that Elizabeth is Circus Baby, right? And he's been talking to Circus Baby this whole week, a sister he thought was dead. And he's like, I can still communicate. I need to help her, right? That's why he keeps going back down there. But unfortunately, eventually they got him, right? He gets scooped. By the end of the week, they scoop out his insides. Ennard wears him like a flesh suit, and they leave. The next bullet, bad plan, idiots. Soon after, Michael's body begins to rot, and they escape into the sewers. This is, the cutscenes we see from Sister Location Custom Night, where it's the, like, Michael just being a cool guy, just a chill guy, just those cutscenes. And then there's that sequence, the you won't die. You won't die. You won't die. You won't die. Like that section. It's questionable why he comes back to life. My thoughts, since we know the scooper is a remnant injector, is that when they scooped him, he also got remnant attached to his body. And we know for a fact that remnant can save a life. In the Silver Eyes, Carlton gets remnant molten metal injected directly into his heart and survives. And the only reason he survives is at the very end of the vision that he gets because of it. I believe Michael, but it's a different Michael, one of the MCI victims, gives him the symbol of remnant that was in that vision and says, like, you'll need this. And then he wakes back up. And, there are other stories like Fragility, where I think it's called Fragility, where like remnant is being shaved off onto hospital patients and they get better. Like, we know remnant has this healing quality. So either Michael dies and through remnant is able to possess himself, or a really nasty, horrible, graphic, no good option. Because he had remnant, and because they just scooped out his chest, didn't like fully take out all of his insides, there is a possibility. Well, I mean, no, because the eyes are in the skull. There's a possibility that, like a springlock suit, enough of his organs were still in there that he was alive through all of that and felt all of that. And when the endoskeleton Ennard leaves, like a springlock suit, his organs kind of shifted back into place with the remnant, and he just survived it. Frankly, I hope that's not true. But the more I think about it, it is a really good parallel for a springlock suit. If it's because like it's a circular scoop that hit his chest cavity. There's no way it pulled out his entire muscular endosystem, like his muscular skeletal system, just, you know what I mean? So like, I think it is more likely that it just gave them the opening to wear him like a springlock suit, and his organs and bones were shattered and pushed to the side. But there was enough of him there and enough remnant in his body that he unfortunately lived and felt through all of that. And when they exited, he slowly reformed into some semblance of a person again. That's fucked. Although I guess the argument is, why would he have rotted if he was still alive? Which the counterpoint could be, can you call that alive? Would a person rot in that state? Probably, it's hard to say. I kind of like that just because it's a really cool parallel for springlock suits. I might write that down just so I don't forget. But right, so after that, Michael is like, I need to find William. I need to kill my dad. And Ennard, after enough time, is like, Ayo, we're the missing child incident victims. Who the fuck is that? She doesn't even go here. That conversation between them and Elizabeth, where it's like, you can't tell us what to do anymore. And she's like, yes, I can, dummy. And they're like, and they kick her out. And then that's when they form into Molten Freddy and Scrap Baby. We don't know when this happens. We just know it happens sometime between now and FNAF 6. That's all we know. And FNAF 6 is like maybe 2023. So there's a huge gap of time here. Who knows? But somewhere in there, it happens. Moving on. I guess we'll move on to FNAF 3 at this point, because I think that happens next. Quick note, I forgot to add in FNAF 1. After FNAF 1, I think that's when the FNAF 4 gameplay we see starts happening in Michael's nightmares, right? So it's always confusing, because Didophobia shows us that a possibility of Chambers doing the FNAF 4 experiment, doing like experiments that look just like FNAF 4 is a possibility. And I think Michael and the Crying Child went through that. But the FNAF 4 game, and this could be a Steve Snodgrass explanation, this could be our indie dev getting something wrong. We can accept that. But there's one thing that is an issue with it. And that is the backwards FNAF 1 phone call you hear during the gameplay of FNAF 4. And that's something that the Crying Child would have never heard. And that's something Michael would have never heard before working there. So unless we can call that a mistake by Steve Snodgrass, I'm going to assume that the FNAF 4 gameplay we see by playing the video game is Michael having recurring nightmares after working at the FNAF 1 location. Does it matter that much? Not really, because they all kind of go through that gameplay, except for Nightmare Fredbear and Nightmare. I think those are exclusive to Michael. I should make a note about that, actually. What I think those are, Alone Together tells us that when ghosts try to make contact with you, they can sometimes mess with your dreams. And I think that is the Crying Child reaching out to Michael, but inadvertently making his nightmares worse, you know? Yeah. All right, well, on to FNAF 3, yeah? So FNAF 3, 2015, I think so. Ooh, I almost forgot. All right, so FNAF 3. Sometime after Sister Location, looking for William, Michael hears about a Fazbear-themed horror attraction that is claiming to have genuine pieces of Fazbear Entertainment throughout the years. And is like, well, in the hopes that, like, you know, maybe we'll get an address of something we can track down. Like, if this guy's been going around collecting real Fazbear merchandise, he would have visited a lot of Fazbear establishments, so he can cross-reference with the addresses and try to find something to link to his dad. Or, hey, maybe his dad will also be there, you know? So this is when FNAF 3 happens. And after night 1, Phone Dude finds the false wall in the OG Freddy's and brings William, now Springtrap, to the attraction. And the puppet follows to keep tabs on William, hoping he's dead for good. So what do I mean by that? Like we mentioned in the previous one, I believe that Springtrap is locked in the back room because his programming of the suit, which is in suit mode, we know this, says that there's no back room. So it's just lost. It can't go anywhere. It's stuck there. So when they pull him out, the puppet's like, and I think the puppet is still there too, because in FNAF 3, rarely you can see the puppet on the cameras with with a reflection in the water, insinuating it's real. And the character encyclopedia was like, Charlotte stays behind to make sure William is truly gone because she senses he isn't. But he hasn't moved for some odd 30 years, you know? Or I guess at this point closer to 20. But now that he's being taken out of the room, it's like, oh shit, I gotta figure out if this guy's gonna move and be a problem. So Charlotte goes to follow and finds out that, yes, he's being a problem. I also think, next bullet point, enough real FNAF memorabilia is there, that's not a correct sentence, but that the location is soaked in agony, and it gets into the head of Michael, causing the phantom animatronics. I think the phantoms aren't something that William is doing. Because he knows, I believe he knows about agony at this point from the nightmare experiments, but I don't think he knows it well enough to wield it like this. But I do think that him and Michael are getting these visions of agony as the phantom animatronics. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, it's literally this dude has been collecting physical objects from the worst locations ever and putting it into one big building themed around it. That's a lot of agony. And agony can do so much weird stuff in FNAF that I think the Phantom animatronics make a lot of sense to be these manifestations of agony. Now, to be fair, typically in the book, when agony manifests, it is a jet black, like completely, like, I forget the word, but Vanta black, like that pure void-like black. However, agony can do a lot of stuff. So while the phantoms, I shouldn't say the phantoms themselves are manifestations of agony, I think seeing the phantoms could be an effect of the agony. I think that makes a lot of sense. Regardless, once Michael is sure that it is William and sees Springtrap like ambling around the place, he burns the whole location down in the hopes to take him out for good. But of course, it doesn't work, and William gets away. I think during this time and soon after, Michael is doodling in the little Fazbear activity logbooks they give out, just like to pass the time, and he notices something strange is happening in his book. And that's where we get the logbook. I'm so sure the logbook is like important to the lore, you know? And it feels like a really good moment for Michael to start continuing that redemption arc of him helping his younger brother find his memories. So he notices that, like, the crying child, this whole time is like this wandering spirit who can't really do anything. He's stuck where he is. But I think it would make sense if he's also tagging around Michael and seeing what he's up to. And maybe that journal is a way that they can communicate, similar to like ghostwriting, where like someone will leave a pencil with a book in the hopes that like the ghost will write with it, you know, something like that. Something like that. And I think that's what we're seeing in the logbook. And he would have gotten it from here. Whether it happens during this or after, it's hard to say. I think it's mostly after, because I don't see a reason Cassidy would be in the FNAF 3 location, and Cassidy is definitely involved in the logbook. What it might be is that once he sees that there's like some activity, he brings it to Fredbear's, and that's where a lot of this goes down. That's where he'll like, that's where he'll better communicate with Dave. That's where better communicate with Cassidy, is probably in Fredbear's. And that's me thinking the map of Midnight Motorist is FNAF 4 house, the old building of Fredbear's, the lake, right? Like that, like triangle of locations. Furthermore, to talk about William after FNAF 3, this is the Stormister theory, right? This is William twice now. His programming has gotten in the way. Now, I don't think they brought up the back room, but they were more so talking about in FNAF 3, you can use the sound to distract William, and like you can use the sound to puppet the suit around the location. And in the tapes we hear, Ralph is like, yeah, when they're in suit mode, when they're in performance mode, they are programmed to follow the sounds of children. They will do that. So that was a weakness that William had that was used against him. And so far in this timeline, he was stuck in the safe room for however long because of that programming. He couldn't get out. So twice now, he's been thwarted by the programming of the show mode of this suit. And he just got put through a building fire. So he needs repairs and he wants to make modifications to the suit, but he would need similar technology, likely of the same line. And wouldn't you know it, there's a Fredbear. So he goes and he desecrates the Fredbear suit to repair himself and use pieces on himself. Similar to FNAF 2 when the olds were used to repair the toys. But in doing that, inadvertently, he is taking pieces of Cassidy's remnant and affixing it to his own body. And this is where we get the explanation for Ultimate Custom Night way later down the line, where Cassidy is in William's soul and able to hold him and torture him because of this moment, because of this attaching of Cassidy's remnant to himself. They are now intertwined, and Cassidy can refuse to move on and torture William forever. Using agony, for the record. And that's something that we see in the epilogues of Fazbear Frights, where Eleanor is able to throw Detective Larson into this like unending labyrinth of horrible memories, because he's just going through one after the other, and she does this with agony, which seems similar to what an Ultimate Custom Night would be. But yeah, that's FNAF 3 and the end of it. And the next thing is the lead up to FNAF 6. So this will probably be another in-betweener, because there's a lot that needs to happen in the setup. So I'm going to do a 2015 to 2023, baby. See you on the other side. And I have a feeling this one's going to be way later because dinner's ready. Regardless, I did 2 slides because they're kind of the same event. The timeline between FNAF 3 and FNAF 6 is pretty much just Henry preparing for FNAF 6, right? So I figured it best to do that slide and the FNAF 6 slide at the same time while the brain juice was still flowing. So after FNAF 3, after Fazbear's frights, right, Henry gets let out of prison. For those who weren't here, I made the claim that part of William doing the missing child incident was framing Henry for it to get him out of the way. And this is kind of, it's twofold. One, this leans on the idea that the FNAF 1 paper says the word that somebody was convicted, which means like they were accused and found guilty of a crime, not just, charged, which you can be charged and let go. You can be mischarged, And then the other part of that is Henry as a character is really strange because there's like 30 to 40 years of this plotline that he's just absent for, right? He's just not there. And with the way he talks in FNAF 6, where he's like, I need to put a stop to this. I must end all of this. It's like, okay, buddy, where have you been? So I find it's a convenient way to explain that. I mean, there's also the chance that, so if he was in prison from the missing child incident, that's 1985, right? Then it's like, okay, why is he no longer in prison? There's a couple explanations. One, could just be good behavior. Life sentences are typically capped, and I believe, I might have to double check this, but I think it's like 20 to 30 years. Oh, sorry, I was misremembering. It's not that a life sentence is 20 to 30 years. It's that typically sentences aren't just life sentence. It'll be, for example, 30 to life, which is a very common sentencing for like maximum sentencing, which is essentially saying at least 30 years. And then by the end of the 30 years, if you're on good behavior, we can try parole, we can try to rehabilitate you into society, but you're at least being in there for 30 years. And I wouldn't doubt if Scott just Googled like, what's a horrible prison sentence and got 30 to life. Wouldn't you know, 2015, FNAF 3 is 30 years after the missing child incident, 1985, in this timeline. So that could line up that way. Another explanation is if Henry is being held for the missing child incident and the backrooms were sealed because of the missing child incident, which technically I make the argument that they were sealed after FNAF 2, I think. Right? When did I say they were sealed in this timeline? 1987. Yes, the Spring Bunny suit is sealed in the safe room. Okay. Oops. That's fine. That doesn't mess with too much. But essentially, like, in the things that... Because we know FNAF 3 is Phone Dude recovering all of this stuff. And, like, bringing up all these things and collecting this memorabilia. So in doing this, if he found anything incriminating and handed it to the police, they might be able to exonerate Henry with that evidence, right? Like, this would be the first time somebody's been digging through these locations, and they could have found something that could have exonerated Henry. Maybe even just like a piece of security footage that shows Henry somewhere else at the time. Anything. So I think there's a couple possibilities for Henry getting out of prison around 2015. Either he was on good behavior and he's on parole, something that Phone Dude found exonerated him. There's plenty of reasons for him to be free now. But now that he's back, he's left to pick up the pieces. He's been in prison for 20 to 30 years, and he doesn't know what's going on. So he goes to figure out what's going on, and, well, William's nowhere to be found. His family is nowhere to be found. He doesn't have any family of his own anymore. Well, let's go check out the places of business. They're all closed. Well, what about the sister location bunker where we built the fun times? And that's where he finds everything, much like Michael. He finds the blueprints, the things William has done. In fact, now he probably finds the security footage of Michael being scooped by Ennard. He learns everything that's gone on here. And we know for a fact he has blueprints that were in sister location. because he has the scooper blueprints. He likely sees the FNAF 3 fire article that was in the news. And knows now that burning him won't stop him, right? So continuing, but he knows from Williams' research that if overheated, Remnant may be neutralized. And that's where the cogs start turning for FNAF 6. So he goes to the old Fredbear's building and starts beginning work on the pizzeria simulator. The idea of making this big trap to lure everybody in one place, shut the doors, and incinerate everything. But he needs help. He is an old man, and he is possibly the only person in the entire world who knows what's going on here. If he dies, nobody's left to stop it. He is most valuable person right now. He himself says, I could make myself sleep, but not before I stop what's going on. He knows how valuable he is in this moment. If he dies, it's all over. No one is left to stop William. So as much as he doesn't want to involve other people at this point, he cannot risk his life right now. He needs someone else to keep an eye on the animatronics, vet them on the way in, and make sure they are the important ones. So he puts out an ad for somebody to come to work. And if an ad comes out for a Fazbear location if it's in Fredbear's, this is likely down the street from his old house. Michael will find that ad. Michael will apply. And Henry is astounded Michael is alive, right? As far as Henry's aware, all of the Aftons are dead. And here comes a very hurt-looking Michael Afton, ready to help. This goes into the job listing not intended for you that gets brought up a lot, where a lot of people use it as an argument against Michael being the FNAF 6 protag, because they're like, well, if it's Michael, obviously Henry would want Michael to help, so if he wanted Michael to help but the job listing wasn't intended for him, then who is it? I think it's quite the opposite. I think at this point, Henry is assuming Michael Afton is dead. He just wanted some random person off the street to help him, which is why there was an exit made. And that's because you can't just say not intended for you. There's lines that come after that are equally important. To my brave volunteer who found this job listing not intended for you. There was an exit planned for your escape, but I have a feeling that's not what you want. I think you're right where you want to be. That's not verbatim. I'm not that much. Oh, it's kind of close. I was about to say I'm not that much of an insane person, but now that I think about it, I think it was the last line I messed up. Anyway, if it was just a random person, why would they want to die? Meanwhile, if he was planning for a random person and planned an escape route for that random person, but knows that it's actually somehow in a live Michael Afton, this line makes perfect sense. I didn't know you were here. I didn't know you could be here. But now that you are, I have a feeling you're not leaving. That makes perfect sense. And then we move on to 2023, where FNAF 6 happens. The year pretty much comes from HRY 223. You know, I think it's really weird to get your date 223 to 2023. Like, it's a really weird nomenclature. It could very well just be that's Henry's 223rd audio log. Who knows? But it's the only thing we got, and it doesn't conflict with the timeline, so who cares, right? The year for FNAF 6, I think, is similar to a lot of other details in a lot of timelines, my own as well, where Dave being a perfect example, the name Dave for the crying child. It's one of those details that, yes, the evidence is a little rough, right? But at the same time, if we are wrong, it doesn't change anything meaningfully, right? But if we're right, then we get to make fun connections. How William uses the fake name Dave Miller in the Silver Eyes, and it's very possible that in the week before he's again using a fake name in Dave, right? So there's a lot of interesting connections if we're right. And if we're wrong, it doesn't affect the timeline that heavily, right? No, if I'm wrong about FNAF 6 happening in 2023, it's still the last one of this era, right? I mean, of course, UCN and FNAF World will get there, but it's still the last main series game, no matter what. So it's one of those things where I'm I don't think it matters too much if 2023 is wrong, so long as we can agree it happens after FNAF 3 and before Help Wanted, right? Because Help Wanted and Security Breach are probably somewhere in the 2030s, according to like calendars and stuff. But yeah, 2023, FNAF 6 happens. Henry is working deep in the facility, while night after night, Michael inspects the animatronics that are being lured to the facility and ensures they are the correct ones. And then once everyone is there, Henry activates the trap, and he, Michael, the MCI victims, Elizabeth, Charlie, and William are all incinerated. But that's not fully the end of the story, as Charlie and Cassidy both have work to do right now. In this moment, 2 games happen at the same time. And I've made this claim for a long time, that after the FNAF 6 fire, and frankly during it even, Charlie and Cassidy are working their ass off in FNAF World and Ultimate Custom Night. And part of this comes from the fact of how connected FNAF World and Ultimate Custom Night is, to the point where if you get the Old Man Consequences Easter egg in Ultimate Custom Night, you'll have the achievement for it in FNAF World, which is crazy. They're talking to each other. So unless it's like some weird programming thing, I don't know how you do that on accident, right? But not only that, we have lines in Ultimate Custom Night where the puppet, more than anyone else, it seems to be presently there. Like all of the animatronics in Ultimate Custom Night, most of them anyway, in some way bring up the fact that like I am a creation. You know, like, we are here together. We're stuck here. You know, a whole idea of like Ultimate Custom Night being this creation, whereas the puppet literally has a line that says something along the lines of, the others are like animals, but I am very aware. And like, I'm not afraid of you, but you need to stay out of my way. The puppet is very conscious and seems to be doing something. And that leads me to think that FNAF World and Ultimate Custom Night are happening at the same time. So in this moment, Charlie is helping all of the remaining souls move on, including Dave Afton with FNAF World. So Charlie is trying to help find Dave's memories so he can finally find peace. This is FNAF World explaining Shatter Victim. I have a whole video on this that I really don't have time to fully go over, but essentially FNAF World is us collecting pieces and helping a trail so someone can move on. And obviously it parallels with the FNAF 3 minigames, the Happiest Day minigames. I think the Happiest Day minigames and FNAF World are telling the same story. I think it's spirits trying to help Dave Afton, the crying child, move on. And this goes back into why I think the lump in the woods is Dave's body. Because again, alone together, you need to find your body to get your memories so you can move on. So not only are they going around collecting pieces of Dave's memory, right, in this realm they've created, but where does the clock ending, the one I'm talking about, end in FNAF World? If you don't remember, weirdly, the very end, after you've done everything, you just go to an unremarkable spot in the woods, and it ends. Where's Dave's body? An unremarkable spot in the woods. Like, it lines up really well. So I think FNAF World is the culmination of Happiest Day. It's Charlie helping all the souls, and all the souls pitching in to help Dave piece together his memories, find his body, so all of the missing child incident souls, and possibly Charlie too, can rest. And at the same time, Cassidy's just having a field day. Cassidy, the angry spirit fueled by agony who has been attached to William Afton, is using their agony to hold William in this created hell of his and her memories, or their memories. It's Cassie's, who is hard to tell what gender Cassidy is, throwing every horrible thing he's ever done at him for eternity, right? I touched on this already, that like the books show us that like you can use agony or remnant to put people into memories. Remnant is typically positive memories, and agony is shown directly to be able to force you into a horrible memory that either the person doing it or the person having it could have. Like Eleanor puts Detective Larson in her own memories when torturing him. So the explanation for Ultimate Custom Night, as there are some animatronics that Cassidy would not have seen, like the nightmares, for example. But they're animatronic, all of these animatronics, at least William has seen, right? And William and Cassidy have definitely both seen. Like if you put their memories together. So with that, that is what I'm arguing Ultimate Custom Night is, right? It's all of this happening at the same time. and all of these memories being combined into this personal hell. And that's just kind of the end of FNAF 6 and the end of this Scott era of the story. Granted, again, I want to be super clear. All of FNAF is written by Scott. I'm so sick and tired of people being like, oh, Steel Wool ruined the story. Scott's still fucking writing the story. Scott didn't even goddamn retire. It's crazy how many people will be like, I mean, Scott's retired, so... No, he's fucking not. He's still the lead story writer. He's just not programming anymore because he's not a great programmer anyway. He's still the lead writer of the story. Like, what are you talking about? Anything, especially when people are like, I can't believe Steel Wool is changing all the paranormal stuff to be sci-fi. Motherfucker, Scott wants it all to be sci-fi. Look at Sister Location. What's the game he made before FNAF? Desolate Hope. That shit's so fucking sci-fi. It grinds my gears because it's wrong in an annoying way. Anyway, but that is kind of the era of the ScottGames era of the story. And I think it's probably a good place to end because I think we're encroaching upon 45-50 minutes. And then moving forward, the next timeline will be starting after FNAF 6 before Help Wanted. And that's where things are going to get a little weird, a little silly, a lot less evidence for it. But we're going to do it anyway. So far, this timeline is at 17 PowerPoint slides. Honestly, only 17 PowerPoint slides for this entire timeline is pretty good, I think. I think we've condensed this down to the essentials. But we haven't left anything behind. Like, everyone is still included. I think that's pretty good. So I'm happy with that. Yeah. For the record, if you think the Fazbear Fright stories happen in FNAF, you're looking at anywhere from 1993 to like 2023. Like, that's really... And then after, right? Especially with Man in Room 1280. I guess no, most of the Fazbear Fright stories would be after. So we're talking about like 2023 onward, because Man in Room 1280 is the beginning to the majority of, if not all of Fazbear Frights, which is a whole nother thing to go over. Because like, how the fuck does Into the Pit take place in like 2030? Anyway, I think that's what we're gonna call today. So again, sorry for no questions. It's just sometimes these timeline episodes run very long, and I think we've ran long. So until next time. Thank you for watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.